Hello and welcome to today's online training. Going to get started in a couple of minutes or so. Just going to allow the last few people to join. If you're just coming in, just want to check the technology before we get started. So if you can hear me and Terry when he speaks.
Hiya, folks. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are.
Give us a hello in the chat box just to let us know you can hear us okay. And if you're just coming in, we're going to get started in just a few seconds. If you can just let us know that the technology is working, you can hear us okay, see the screen which will say starting soon. You can just give us a hello or put your name in the chat box just so we know that everything's working from a technology standpoint. I know these things can be sometimes where, you know, we're talking and people can't hear us.
So a few people come in. Hi, Ted. Hi, Lucy. Hi, Clarion. Hi, Jeremy. Hi, Paul. Hi, Mark. Hi, Ted. Hi, Jean-Marie, Hudson, John, James. And more people are coming in as we talk. So just type yes in the box if you can see and hear us.
Again, we're going to get started in about 30 seconds. Again, just want to make sure that you can see us clearly. So see the screen, it should say starting soon. Hear us clearly. If you can, let us know in the chat box. If you can't, obviously let us know as well. We can see what we can do. We'll get started in about 15 seconds. This training is called Automatic Sales.
Yeah, that's spot on, Lucy. Yeah. Hi, Sana.
Awesome. Perfect. So it looks like everything is working okay. So let's jump right in, right? So what we're going to look at today is this training is called Automatic Sales. And what we're going to talk about is how to dramatically increase the sales in your recruitment search business. And the important part is, you know, without appearing slimy, needy, or desperate for business. This is the first time we've done this training sort of outside our private client group. So, you know, as we go, if you've got any questions, anything that isn't, you know, we don't put across clearly or anything you don't quite understand, the chat box or the comment box where you've all said that you can hear us, use that to post your questions in. Any that we sort of, you know, we'll do our best to answer all of them, and any that we don't, we'll do our best to answer at the end. But anything that's not 100% clear, you disagree with, doesn't sit right with you, let us know in the chat box and we can make sure that we explain it. So why have we decided to put on this training? So again, me and Terry, we speak to recruitment and search runners every day of the week, and you know, we probably get a better insight than most about what's going on behind the scenes in their business. And you know, what we've found over the years is that the vast majority of recruitment and search runners that we speak to, you know, quite frankly, aren't very good at sales, or they've either never been taught how to sell properly and they're just doing what their previous boss taught them and it's not working for them, or they're doing it in a way that feels, you know, doesn't really feel right, doesn't quite sit right with them. And, you know, we've sort of toiled this over the years, and what we have is a framework that we give our clients that helps, one, make your sales more predictable, two, you know, makes the whole sales process feel comfortable for you as a salesperson, and three, you know, ultimately your clients enjoy it as well. Terry, anything you would add to that?
Yeah, I think it's, I know in terms of our upbringing, there is a perception about, you say sales, and there is a certain perception about it, and one of the consequences, and by the way, that perception is a negative perception when you talk about sales, and that's very salesy, that's very slimy, and that kind of thing. But I think what's important to remember is that sales and marketing are the lifeblood of your business. Now, I know some really lousy recruiters in terms of delivery, but they make an exceptional good living because what their strength is that they're selling. But the majority of recruitment search business owners are bad at selling. I'd add to that, they're also uncomfortable about selling as well. There's an element of discomfort about it. But as I said, it's the lifeblood of your business, and we'll demonstrate this in a lot more detail as we go along. Without sales, you've got challenges, in particular in this current climate with everything that's going on right now and the uncertainty that we're in.
So I just want to check in again, if any of these sound familiar to you, just put me in the chat box, right? So these are sort of 8 signs or 8 possible reasons you could be bad at selling, or 8 signs that you could be bad at selling. If any of these relate to you, just put me in the chat box. So number 1 is that you're currently, either now or in the past, working on contingency assignments rather than retained or exclusive. So if that's you, give me a me in the chat box.
And just to clarify that, what we mean by contingency, you don't get paid unless you deliver on. So you can do a lot of work and not get paid. On the retained basis, you get paid up front. And exclusive, you're working exclusive on that job board. That's what we mean by that one. So if that's you, you're working predominantly on contingency. And just on that, by the way, the average contingent recruiter will not fill most of the roles they work on. In fact, the percentage is anything between 10 and 40%. So even if you're the top end and you're filling 40% of the roles you're working on, it does mean most of the time you're working, you're not getting paid. Number two, you're working for fees far less than you believe your service is worth. Type me in the box if you believe you're working for fees less than you believe your service is actually worth.
Number three, you're not generating as much revenue as you would like in your business. Again, give me a me in the chat box. Number four, you find yourself working with clients you don't like because you're scared on missing out on future revenue.
And we've all been there with those. My language for them is shitty clients. We've all had them. We've all experienced them. You really don't enjoy working with them. Number five, you find yourself meeting with the prospects only for them to ghost you. When I say meeting, it could be a telephone call when they go, yeah, I'll get back to you. There is something you could perhaps help us with. Or they may even go so far as to send you a job spec. But they never, ever return your calls. Type me in the chat box if you've experienced that. Number six, you lose out on good business to your competitors. If you ever lost out on good business that you actually wanted to one of your competitors, type me in the chat box.
Number seven, you find yourself busy, really busy working on job orders, but your cash flow is struggling. And finally, number eight, your prospects think that you're too expensive and they tell you that you're too expensive, even though you know that the value that they're going to get in return far outweighs the fee that you're asking for. So if any of those relate to you, just give me a me in the chat box. I'm seeing lots of me's, right? Lots of people are resonating with this. Lots of recruitment and search firms in the same situation, going through the same challenges. So that's sort of what we're going to be looking at today. How do we tackle those 8 things? And ultimately, the reason why this is such a tragedy, right? If you find yourself in this situation, again, we've been there, a lot of our clients has been there as well. Now, ultimately, you're going to suffer with lack of revenue, not making the money you want in your business. You're going to very quickly find yourself working harder and harder for less and less reward. You're going to end up working with low value clients, working on low value job orders, and working under bad terms and low fees. Terry, anything you'd add to that?
Yeah. How often have you woken up in the middle of the night concerned about lack of revenue? And if you've got a team, you're thinking, how the hell am I going to pay my team? How many are you working, 12-hour days, probably 5 days a week, or working with clients and actually when you look at it, the work that you put in, the return you've got for it, you're just like, what the hell am I doing? Because you've got bad terms. And when I say bad terms, often the terms are good for the client, but not good for you. And that's not a good thing when it's good for one party, but not good for the other, for obvious reasons. And when you set up in business, I can absolutely guarantee that was not your intention to work on low value job orders on bad terms and low fees.
So here's what we're going to be covering today. We're going to be looking at how to go from being indifferent to irresistible in the eyes of your ideal prospects. We're going to be walking you through the exact framework the recruitment and search business owners we help use to consistently win new business over their competitors, even if you charge higher fees. And we're going to take you from low value contingency assignments to high quality exclusive or retained assignments using the 3 principles of what we call automatic sales. But before we do that, I just want to sort of check in. I know I've seen a few familiar faces, but I just want to sort of get a gauge of the room. Who, if this is your first time hearing from me and Terry, this is your first experience with us, you've never sort of heard of us before, you registered for this webinar, put a 1 in the chat box. And if you're more familiar, you've been to a few trainings before, just give me a 2 in the chat box so I can get a gauge of where people are. So I know I've seen a few familiar places, so 1, 1, 1, 1, couple of 2s. So 2, Jen, listen to Terry's podcast. Awesome. So, okay. So a mix. So what we've been doing recently, like usually when we were first taught how to do webinars, right, the person who taught us said, oh, you need to spend a good sort of 30 minutes at the start of the call talking about your experience and how good you are, and why I should listen to you. And I know I see the value in that, and it just makes sense, because otherwise, everything we say is going to be, less, it's not going to be as potent. You can hear it, but it's not going to be as potent. But what we've been doing recently, and it's been working quite well, is we've getting some of our clients just to record a quick 2-minute video, a medley of 2 minutes. It's going to be 2 minutes in total of them saying the results that they've got. So I'm just going to play you that video really quickly now, and then we'll get right into the content. So it gives us more time to cover the content. And Terry, can you tell me if you can hear it from your end, just to make sure the sound's working?
Yeah.
What I would say to anybody is, listen, if you're prepared to put in the hard work, change some of the habits that you have, pick up the phone to you guys. Because for me, it's been, transformational. I'll give you an example. My turnover in the first 6 months of this year was more than double my turnover in the whole of the previous year. And also, from a lot of the other work that we've done, my profitability, percentage-wise, was 20% higher than it had been in the previous year.
Highly recommend it to everyone, because for us, it meant that the missing link was there. It means that it might be a bit difficult to say on that, but I would definitely say, and we just finished a 12-week program. It definitely meant a 10 to 20% boost already. That's 10%, but a lot is still in the pipeline.
Terry, so I've been in the recruitment search industry since 1997, so over 20 years. And I have to answer the question in the time frame to a degree that we're in because of the coronavirus COVID-19 scenario. That said, if we track at the end of the year what we've done for the first 6 months of this year, we will have grown the business by about 25% to a third over the same time frame last year. Even with and I had to put the framework around that because it's even with the pandemic comment. I would absolutely say this is some of the best training. And by the way, I've taken quite a few trainings over the past 20 years from quite a few seasoned experts, and they've all had very good points and things that they brought, into my frame of thinking. But this has really truly been at the top of the list, and I would wholeheartedly encourage others to take advantage of the program.
Than ego. Every time I've done what I thought best versus what Mr. Edwards has thought best, has outperformed me quite significantly. And that's what matters, right? It's not about what I like or what you like, what people think is right. It's what works. That's the only useful measure.
Awesome. So before we sort of dive in, I just wanted to talk about ego a bit, because I think one of the biggest things that holds recruitment search promoters back in any element is their ego, right? So I need to sort of knock that down before we continue, otherwise you won't get as much value from this training. So we're going to probably, I'm pretty sure we're going to share things with you or talk about things that are outside or completely alien to the way that you're currently doing things. I'm sure of that. And what what our ego does, it wants to protect our old stories, right? It wants to protect the old way we've been doing things. It wants to, make us feel like, we're not doing it wrong, and, that we're wrong, rather than actually there could be a chance that I need to change the way I'm doing things. But I just want to sort of highlight to you that if you're not getting the results you want, specifically in sales, as we talk about this training, but, it could be any area of your life, it's for one of four reasons. Why there's something that you do not know, or there's something that you know but you're not doing, or there's something that you're doing but you're not doing properly, or you need to remember that the current version of you, your knowledge, your skill, your outlook on life will only get you this far, right? You've sort of in order to progress, we need to transform our identity and who we are. So two things. Does that make sense? And are we okay with that? Give me a yes in the chat box if it is. Quite frankly, if the answer is no, you might as well leave now. But give me a yes in the chat box if it is, and we're all on the same page. And Terry, anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, just to reinforce it and your ego, because some people mistake your ego is like imagine that you have an overprotective mother, and all she wants to do is protect you in every way possible. That's what your ego does to you. What it's trying to do is protect you. So we're going to share with you some things that you may not be doing or you may not be thinking. But the overprotective doesn't want to make you look wrong in any way. So it will say things like, so if you start saying things like, yeah, but my industry is different, just be aware that that's your ego getting in the way. As Drew said, if you're not getting the results that you want right now, it would be worth doing things differently to the way you're doing them now. Because whatever results you're having right now are merely reflections of the habits, the thoughts, and the activity that you're doing. So if you want different results, kind of makes sense that you're going to have different habits, different thoughts, and different activities. And so what I'm going to show you, I get you might think, well, yeah, this is different, but just acknowledge that could well be that this would work for you because it's worked for everybody else.
Perfect, thank you, Terry. Again, it's not going to work for you if you believe this or anything else is going to get you the result without putting the work in. Again, I want to be very clear and upfront about that. It's not going to be for you if you're not serious and committed to your business and serious about increasing your revenue. Some of this selling in general is very difficult to do if you're going to be timid, faint-hearted, or unwilling to ruffle a few feathers or go against the industry norms. Right, the industry norms, quite frankly, are slowing you down. Unless you want, if you want normal results, stick to the industry norms. I'm assuming that you don't know. I'm assuming you want better than that, right? So we need to go against the industry norms. We're going to go for approximately 60 minutes. There's nothing to sell to you at the end. But I just want to make it very clear, selling and sales in general is a topic we could do a 3-day seminar on and still not have covered everything we want to talk about. So this is just it's just scraping the surface. So if you do find it useful, I want to make a promise to yourself and a promise to us that you will sort of explore further and try and find out more, off your own back. You're committed to actually taking this information and doing more with it. Give me a yes if you're committed to that. Again, if you're not, then there's no real point in you being here. But if you're committed to, again, on the understanding that you find it useful, if you don't, then obviously you don't need to do anything with it. But if you do find it useful, are you actually going to do something with it and take it further? Because this is just going to be a 60-minute overview of the framework. Perfect. Awesome. So this sort of jump right in. I want to sort of be very clear here before we go any further, right, on what the definition of selling is. Right, so I just done a quick Google search before we start this, get what Google says selling is, based on the Google dictionary, right? And so it's two definitions, right? One, to give or hand something over in exchange for money. Two, to persuade someone of the merits of. So to give or hand something over in exchange for money, to persuade someone of the merits of. And this is especially for those of you who are sort of still married to the contingency route. If you're working on contingency assignments, categorically, by the definition, you are not selling, right? First of all, there's been no exchange. If you win a contingency job order, the client has not exchanged money with you. That you've basically agreed to work for free, and there's no even guarantee of you ever getting paid, really, right? Because the client could change their mind, they could pull the plug, and again, if you've been a recruiter for more than a month, this has already happened to you. You spend weeks and weeks or months sometimes working on a particular role, only for the client to say, or not even the client because you haven't sold anything, the hiring manager say, what, we've found someone internally, or we've gone a different direction, we've changed our mind, right? There's been no exchange, so you have not made the sale, right? People in our program, we encourage them not to celebrate job orders because it's not making a sale. Also, unless you're the first recruiter that this hiring manager has ever spoken to, you haven't persuaded anyone of anything. Right, you haven't convinced them to go down a particular route. Again, this is for those of you working on PSL. We haven't convinced anyone. You're just joining a party that they was already involved in, right? So, two things. Does that make sense? Give me a yes in the chat box. And Terry, anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, if you don't like selling, if you find it icky and slimy or whatever, I can understand when the hiring manager says, "Yeah, we are looking for something. Let me send you a job order over." That you go, hell yeah, and and if you're in an office with your colleagues, you high five your colleagues because you just got a job order, because you haven't had to ask for the business, you haven't had to sell anything. They've said, yeah, I'll send you the job spec over. You guys have a look at it. So I understand why you might be thinking, this is where your ego's coming in. Yeah, but if I have to sell, there's a possibility, and a very good one by the way, of me getting rejected. And your ego saying, look, getting rejected is not pleasant. So let's avoid any chance of getting rejected by simply taking the job order and let's run with it. Let's run with it. Think about that statement, along with half a dozen other recruiters who also think the same way and also running with it. But then there's a smart recruiter that says, hell no. Look, if you want to engage us, let's have a proper conversation about how we can do this and do this properly and work on a retained basis, at the very least on an exclusive basis, so you get the best candidates and the best possible service. Hope you can appreciate the difference in those two things.
Yeah, so just to be very clear, when we talk about selling, there's only two ways it can happen in recruitment, again, permanent recruitment. One is that you win the retainer, so the client pays you up front. You've convinced them enough to exchange money for your services. You're not working for free. Two, the other criteria is that maybe they don't pay you up front, but you get it on exclusive terms, so it's only you working on the role, and ideally you have a cancellation policy. So if they cancel, they change their mind, you're still getting paid for the work that you do. Right?
And you see now what we're saying here, because what we're trying to do, sorry to interrupt you, we're trying to stop you from working for nothing. Because any other model, you can do a lot of work and not get paid for it. Any other model, we've all been there, but just to let me clear, I'm a former recruiter where you get that email or that phone call on the especially on the Friday where they go, you know that job order that you've been working on for the last 4 weeks? Well, we found somebody internally. I always just think, what do you mean you found somebody internally? You must have known about them all the time. What you did is you thought, we'll go and look at the market and see how our internal candidate compares with the outside market. So I'll get a few recruiters to work on this for nothing. Think about that. They've got you to do all the research to see what the external market looks like so they can compare it with the internal candidate they had all the time. And I've been there where it just bloody ruins your weekend. You think, great. After all that work, and I don't know about you as well, when you're working, at some level, I don't know, there's no logic to this, by the way. You think, my candidate's the best, they're definitely going to get this. So you're kind of banking on the money coming in. For some reason, you think, yeah, this is a done deal. They perhaps had one interview, you're thinking, yeah, this is the best candidate. There's no logic to that, but we tend to attach ourselves to that kind of outcome. And we've all, if you worked on contingency, we've all been disappointed at that and experienced that disappointment.
Right, so I want to check in. Does that make sense? Give me a yes or no. If you've got any sort of doubt or we haven't explained it, tell me as well. But you know, the goal for you after this is that look, we only work on retained, we get paid up front, or you know, at the very least, it's exclusive with a cancellation. So if the client, we want to get this. What we're looking for is commitment. Commitment in the sense that we exchange money, or commitment in the sense that the client says, look, if we change our mind, then yes, we're still going to pay you. But we've committed, you know, it's not a client unless there is commitment to pay at some level. With a contingency assignment, there is no commitment there unless they make a hire, which they, you know, often, if you look at your fill rates, won't be the case. A lot of the recruiters that we speak to, you know, their fill rates are 30%, which means 70% of the time they're failing, quite frankly. It got even worse during the pandemic. Lower fill rates, higher failure rates, right? So we want to avoid all that. Exclusive or retained. Again, for those of you who haven't put in a box, let me know if it makes sense. And again, if it doesn't, let us know now before we move on, because I want to make sure that this is valuable, it's hitting home, you agree with what I'm saying. If we haven't explained something properly, you know, I want us to have the chance to illustrate the point. Perfect. Awesome. So let's go into the sort of the three pillars. Number one is what we call filtration, right? This is the 3 pillars of automatic sales. Number one is what we call filtration. So again, we sent an email about this a few months ago, but one of my mentors told me a story about Starbucks, right? So I'll share the story with you. Talking about sales processes in businesses, and he was talking about how Starbucks has a 98% close rate when they're during their sales process, right? So 98% of the people that enter their sales process end up buying something from them. And you know, you've got to look at, you know, why is that? Why is that? And it's because they only, and again, it's really simple, but they only sell to buyers, right? Everyone that steps into a Starbucks, the way it's laid out, I guess the culture of Starbucks, you know, it's they only sell to buyers, right? It's very, very simple. But what we find with a lot of recruitment and search owners is that they're, you know, even the ones that do attempt to sell, they're selling to people who don't have a need or interest in what their service is. Terry, anything to add to that?
Yeah, and think about this, the Starbucks model. There are thousands of people outside the store who are just walking past. But Starbucks aren't losing any sleep about it, because the people that come into their store, they know that 98% of them are going to buy. What would it mean for you if you had those kind of numbers, that 98% of the people you knew that were going to buy? So one of the things you would do then, you wouldn't worry about the people outside the store, because it doesn't matter. Because all you want to be worried about and focusing on, worry is the wrong word, focusing on, are those guys that are inside your store. That's all that matters. That's all that Starbucks are worried about.
So I just want to give you two scenarios here. So let's imagine that you've got meetings with two different hiring managers or hiring leaders from two different organizations. Hiring manager A, you know, before you go to the meeting, you know that they've got a vacancy. You know that you can help them with the problem they have. You know that filling this particular role is critical to their business or department. You know that they want to hire the best candidate in the market, right? They want to hire the best person for the role. You know that their job security is dependent on them getting the right person. You know they want the best candidate exclusively, and you know that they want the role filled within a certain time frame. Versus hiring manager B, where we don't have any of this information, right? We don't have any of this information, so we don't even know if they've actually got a vacancy. We don't know what time frame they want to fill the vacancy. We don't know that they want it exclusive. We don't have none of this information. Who would you rather? You can only pick one. Who would you rather speak to? Hiring manager A, when you've got all that information, you know they're effectively going to buy from somebody soon. Or hiring manager B, where we haven't got any of that information, right? Again, it's not a rhetorical question. Let me know in the chat box. Who would you rather have a sales meeting with? Assuming you can only pick one, A or B. Let me know in the chat box.
Bruce, what about you? Who would you rather have the conversation with? What about you, Ben? Alan? Who would you rather have the conversation with?
Right, A or B. A, where we've got all the information, we know they're a buyer or they're going to buy soon. Or B, where we don't have any of that information, right? So everyone's, quite rightly, right? Everyone's saying A. So this often, if this happens in recruitment at the moment, it happens by chance because, it just happened to speak to, what they would call an ideal prospect. So yeah, Paul said A and B, but, I said you only can pick one, right? So I'm gonna get to that in a minute, Paul. So it's a good point you've made. So in the early days of your recruitment business, for you to make more sales, right? It's all about volume. You've got your marketing process, and the job of your marketing process is to get more people into your sales process, which for most recruiters is going to be an appointment of some sort, a sales meeting, face-to-face, over the phone, Zoom nowadays, whatever it's going to be. But marketing going on, whether that's cold calling, LinkedIn, whatever, and we're driving people into our sales process, right? And that's, I guess under your first 6 figures, really, that's what you're concerned with. How do we get more people into the sales process? Volume, volume, volume. If I speak to more people, some of them are going to come over the line. Might not be now, but it's going to be in the future. But what happens was, and this is why, if you've ever felt like your business has plateaued, stalled, not grown as quickly as you like, what happens is the more sales you make, the better you get at marketing and sales, and the more sales you make, all of a sudden, where, at day one, you had nothing else to do but marketing and sales, now you've got delivery, now you've got a team to manage, you've still got to do sales calls, you've still got to do marketing. So all of a sudden, you've got less time, right? You have less time. So if you want to continue growing, you need to be picky about who we sell to, right? So if you imagine Starbucks, let's say Starbucks have 4 salespeople on their till, and rather than staying on the till speaking to buyers, they go out on the street and try and sell Starbucks to people. Now, Starbucks is a recognized brand, so I imagine they'll still make some sales in that way, as you would if you just went out and sold to everybody. But where are they going to get the best return? Right, it's about focus, and the way you get that is with filtration. So now, instead of volume, let's get as many sales calls as possible. Now it becomes let's make sure we get the right sales calls. Let's make sure we get the right sales meetings, and we're speaking to the right people who are our ideal client and in an ideal scenario to make a decision. That's not to say that we'll never speak to hiring manager B. It's just that we're not going to sell to them right now, right? It might be a 15-minute call rather than a 60-minute call or 60-minute meeting, right? We're being choosy about who we sell to, because time is limited. One of the most valuable resources to you as a business owner is time. It's the first thing to disappear. And the more successful you get, the harder it is to find time, right? So once you get over 6 figures, this is why businesses plateau. They don't add filtration. They're still trying to work on volume. You know, it's a numbers game. It's a numbers game. And we all know, even if we take it to marketing, you can make 100 calls and get worse results than someone who's made 10 calls, because the person who made 10 calls, they've made better quality calls. The same is true for your sales presentations. If we can have better quality meetings rather than just more meetings, we would close more, we would make more money, we'd have a better conversion rate, right? We can get more of these assignments on a retained or exclusive basis. So even on that level, we're working on less assignments. We don't no longer, you know, let's say you're a contingency recruiter whose fill rate's 30%. No longer have to work on 10 job orders to fill 3. We can just work on 3 to fill 3 because they're all exclusive or retained. So I want to check in. Does that make sense? Give me a yes or no in the chat box. And Terry, anything you'd add to that?
Yeah. The majority of recruitment and search business owners that I speak to, they have 3 main challenges around time, team, and money. And the point you've made there is a really good point. Look, here's the thing. There are only 86,400 seconds in every day. And once they've gone, they've gone. You can't bank those seconds if you haven't used them or if you've wasted them. So it's for you to get to where you want to get to, for you to avoid the famine and feast that the majority of recruitment and search business owners suffer with. So one quarter, they're actually absolutely smashing it and they're working their tail off. And the next quarter, tumbleweed, nothing. Because they've got no filtration. So they end up talking to everybody. They end up talking to client A and client B. And what we mean by client A, by the way, that's what we call a now buyer. A now buyer is a hiring manager that's going to engage a recruiter in the next 8 weeks or so. They're the guys you want to be talking to. A hiring manager says, actually, I'm going to be using a recruiter this time next year. Well, I suggest you have a conversation with them probably about 10 months from now rather than now. Because ultimately, you want to be talking to the hiring manager that says, I'm going to engage a recruiter in the next 8 weeks. Because that's where the money is today, or the next 8 weeks, so to speak.
And again, just to be clear, we're not talking about, you know, if you look at hiring manager B, so people have said, you know, I want to speak to both because they could buy in the future. This is, you were 100% right, but it's about how much time you spend with them and what you spend that time doing. If they're not a now buyer, don't sell to them. Use that time to build a relationship. If they are a now buyer, use that time to sell. It's 2 completely different functions. And it's going to take, you know, you probably want an hour or so to do a sales presentation, but you could build a relationship with someone in 15 minutes, right? What you need to be very clear on is that any time that you spend with someone who's not a buyer is time that you could have spent on your marketing to get more buyers, right? And again, so I want to reiterate, that plateau that comes in your business is because of lack of filtration. It's because of still being obsessed with volume and more calls, more numbers, rather than better calls, better clients. And again, you know, we're recording this or presenting this, should I say, in the time of the pandemic, right? You've probably seen a lot of businesses really struggle during this period. You may even be one of them. A lot of the reason for that is because they were still obsessed with volume, overinflated teams, overinflated departments, overinflated numbers. Suddenly, when the tires turned, it all came tumbling down. Filtration stops that, right? Because now, if I'm speaking to X number of hiring managers a month in a sales call and it's get me a certain result, and you know, if I think I've done my business and I need to speak to double that number of people, your first thought might be I need to hire somebody. But now it's not I need to hire somebody, I need to increase my expenses. It's how do I filter out the 5 out of these 10 who aren't right. Someone check in. Does that make sense? Give me a yes or no in the chat box. Again, any questions, ask away as well. Again, but filtration is very important. And you know, just to sort of reiterate what we're looking for in a hiring manager, if we want to get retained or exclusive, you know, we only want to do sales meetings, sales presentations, go out and meet clients who we want to know, but do they have a need that you can help with, right? And again, it sounds obvious, but you as an owner, and if you've got consultants, probably they are as well, meeting clients or potential clients for the sake of meeting potential clients, trying to sell to them without even knowing what their need is. 2, is the role critical to the business or department? Again, if it's not critical, one, it's difficult to get a retainer or exclusive because it's not critical. How do you get someone to commit to something when it's not critical for them, right? We want it to be critical. Do they want to hire the best person in the market, right? Not just people who are looking, the best person in the market. Do they want a proper recruitment, research to go into it, or they just want CV sent across? Again, if they just want CV sent across, it's difficult to get retained or exclusive. If they want you to use your skills as a recruiter, go out and find the best person, then we need to know that they want that. Is their job security and performance depending on making the right hire? Again, if it's not, if this role isn't important, again, it's difficult to sell to them. Again, for the exclusivity part, do they want the best candidates sent to them exclusively and not to their competitors? If they're okay with you sending candidates to their competitors, multiple interviews for the same candidate with different, all of their competitors and probably multiple offers as well, it's hard to get them on exclusive terms. But if they say, look, no, when you find the best candidates, I want to interview them. Please don't send them to my competitors. Great, exclusive is the right way to go, right? And do they want the role filled within a certain time frame? Again, it's important we know that, so we know when to schedule the sales meeting for. Terry, anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, if you're not getting yes to those 6 points there, all that's going to happen is the hiring manager is going to treat you as a commodity. So all they're going to say is, do you do recruitment? You say, yes, I do. The next question is, what's your fee? Because all that's going to happen now is that you're a commodity. But if you get yes to all these questions here, these 6 questions, now they're going to treat you as the expert. Now you're going to have a serious conversation. Now you can have a serious conversation about them retaining you for this particular assignment. Now, by the way, your fee is I think it's number 3 or number 4 on the list in terms of what needs to happen before they engage you. But your fee is not the be all and end all. You get yes on this, you're going to get higher fees. You get yes on these, you're going to work less and earn substantially more.
Someone check in, does that make sense? Give us a yes or no in the chat box before we move on. And while you're doing that, number 2 is intention, right? The intention of the sales meeting, intention of the sales call. So what the old school method of selling that most recruiters have been taught, most sales professionals in every industry have been taught, and why sales in general has a bad reputation is, the intention of a sales presentation is to make the sale and collect the cash. That's why you're there, right? I'm not saying that's wrong necessarily, but it's a different train of thought to, what we teach is you're a recruitment consultant, right? The consultant part's important. It's advisory, which means the role of the sales call is to help the prospect make the right decision for them. And we have to be comfortable with that may or may not be buying from us, right? Maybe we're not the right person. Maybe we're not. We have to let go of that desperation, that neediness. Maybe we're not the best person to help solve their problem. But all we're going to do on the call or the meeting or whatever it happens to be, Zoom as it probably will be nowadays, is we're going to just help them make the right decision for them. Again, just want to give you an example scenario. Let's imagine that you've got a headache and you go to the doctors. What normally happens is you say, I've got this head pain. You talk about the symptoms, what you tried before, how it's going, and the doctor will suggest, this should be your next course of action, right? Could be take these painkillers, could be go and see this person, it could be brain surgery, right? Just as an extreme example. But now let's imagine that you went to the doctors, and before you got into the doctor's office, their boss or their intention was, I need to really convince someone to get surgery today. When you go in and now you ask the questions, again, you wouldn't get the same vibe. It's no longer advisory. They're pushing you down a certain route. That's the way most sales is done. It's a fight, right? You're pushing someone into a corner, almost beating them into a sale. So what it does, so you as a seller, it leaves you feeling like, this is why people are uncomfortable with it. It leaves you feeling needy, desperate, at times unethical. Because it's for a lot of people, it's out of sync with who they are. It leaves the buyer or the potential buyer feeling like they've been pushed and bullied into a sale. So you've got a lot of this buyer's remorse as well. Not really that commitment. Whereas, if you take the consultative approach, one, it makes the sales process a lot more comfortable for you as a salesperson. But two, the buyer enjoys it a lot more as well. And you can still get the outcome you want. assuming that your service can actually help them solve the problem they have, which, you know, if you've done the filtration part, it should do. Like, why, you know, if you're a good recruiter, they've got a vacancy, can you help them? Yes. You know, let's just help them see that rather than force them to see that. Someone check in. Does that make sense? Give me a yes or no in the chat box. And Terry, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'm sure as you're listening to this right now, you've experienced a hard sell. You've experienced a salesperson, what we call the old school. I mean, Drew and I joke about this. We call them commission prep. But you know, you can smell that desperation for that sale from 50 paces. They're pushy. They're shoving you. That's the old school. But it doesn't serve you. When you've experienced that, you haven't enjoyed it, and ultimately it doesn't serve you because it's all about them and what they get. And the new school, for want of a better word, is where you're saying, look, I want to help you make the best decision. So now, rather than pushing and shoving, you're going to hold their hand and you're going to guide them to the right decision. And it's win-win for both parties. The problem with old school is that somebody's going to lose out. You know, they force you in the corner. They've got their hands around your neck and their knees in your chest, trying to get to sign the deal or whatever. It's not enjoyable. And you come away. Drew talked about buyer's remorse, where you're thinking, I didn't enjoy that experience. It doesn't have to be that way. Yeah. That's very much old school.
Also, like, you remove the need to justify yourself or your fees, your way of working, because you know, question we always get asked when talking about sales is, oh, how do I, when a client says, why should I buy from you? What do I say? Like, what response do I give? And the natural response as a recruiter is to talk about how good you are and why you're the best. But it's not the truth, right? And that's not to say that you're not the best, right? What I mean by that is when selling a service or when buying a service, or anything really, like, you know, if I said to you on this call now, what's the best film? People would give me different answers in the chat box, right? They'll be completely different. There'll be some that are similar, but they'll be completely different. That's not to say that any of you will be wrong, but it's, you know, it's an opinion, right? Same with selling a service or buying a service, right? We cannot know who the best recruiter is in the world without buying every single recruitment service, testing it for ourselves, right? We can't know that, right? So we can't honestly answer that question. So rather than trying to, by saying you're the best, which is what every other recruiter they've ever spoken to has said, instead, how about you say, look, to be honest, I don't know if we will be I think we're the best, but I don't know if we'll be the right people to help you. What I think is best we do is we demonstrate how we work, and then you can make a decision based on your own experience, right? So suddenly, we're not justifying. We're giving them responsibility. Look, you're a smart hiring manager. I'm sure if we demonstrate, you know, what we do, you can make a decision. So you go from being this pushy, needy car salesman like every other recruiter to saying, look, let me just show you how we work, and you can make a decision. Suddenly you look completely different to them. You've got more trust from the buyer, and also you're just more ethical as well. And that's not to say that you're unethical if you're doing that. Again, often you haven't been taught any better, but suddenly now you're in line with your values because you're just saying, look, let me just show you how we work. You know, I'll show you why I think we're different. You know, I think we're the best, but you may not agree. Let me just show you how we work. And then if you think it's the right fit for you, for your team, you know, then we can talk about fees. Someone check in. Does that make sense? Give me a yes or no in the chat box. And Terry, anything you'd add to that?
At this stage, no, not really, Drew. Covered it well there.
It's okay. Just let me know if it makes sense. Give me a yes or no in the chat box if you've got any questions, right? We want to take away the need to justify your services, and instead we're just going to demonstrate your services. So this is how we work. Does it seem like it solves your problems? Yes or no? Yes. Okay, great. Let's talk about fees. Rather than we're the best, we've got the most experience. This is our website. This is all we do, right? And we're trying to push them into a decision. We're letting them make the decision, because ultimately it's not the best recruiter that makes a sale. It's the recruiter with the best sales presentation. So now we know that and understand that. Let's focus on making sure we've got the best possible demonstration, which brings on to the third point. Like, what do we say and do? What do we talk about during a sales presentation? You know, we've got the filtration, so we're now only speaking to a buyer. We know what our intention is to help them make the right decisions. Now we just need to demonstrate why we can help solve the problems that they have told us they have. Right? We just need to demonstrate that fact. So when we're talking about this, I often like to use the criminal court analogy, or it doesn't need to be criminal court, but you know, a court analogy where you've got the jury, you've got the defendant or the defense team, and you've got the prosecutor. And you know, the way I like to think of it is, we don't really know what the the real version of the truth is, right? The prosecutor doesn't know, the defense team doesn't really know. They just heard what the defendant has told them, and the jury obviously doesn't know either, right? And you've got the two parties trying to convince the jury of their version of the truth, right? Nothing's wrong, nothing's right. It's just whoever's got the best story, the most believable story, the story that demonstrates or is demonstrated to be the most believable wins, right? And we don't, you can look at the OJ case, you can look at, the documentary Making a Murderer, documentaries like that to see that it's not always the truth that wins in court. It's the one who can demonstrate their version of the truth the best. Just want to check in. Does that make sense? Give me a yes or no in the chat box.
Any questions on that or anything else we've said, please let us know. So any questions?
Awesome, perfect. So look, let's imagine for a second that we've got the jury, who's your client, right? They're your client. You're the prosecution, and the defense team represents every reason that the jury shouldn't buy from you, should buy from one of your competitors, or shouldn't buy at all, right? So we just need to make sure, as a prosecution, when we're speaking to the jury, when we're speaking to the client, we're dispelling all of the stories that the defense team is going to tell. Right? If we can dispel their stories, their version of events, we're going to win the business. If we can't, then they're going to win the business, or the client's not going to buy, right? That's sort of the way I like to look at it, and that's your job as the salesperson in this position, right? We're not trying to, once we've got the intention there, we just need to present the right story. And how do you do that? With evidence. What a lot of recruiters do at the moment is that they give almost a closing argument to the jury without presenting the evidence first. So they give the closing argument without presenting the evidence first. What we want to do, though, is make sure that during our sales process, we're giving evidence to the jury that sells us or helps sell our version of the truth, which is we can solve your problem better than anyone else. You should, if you want your problem solved, you should buy from us. Right. So again, these are, again, just want to check in. Does that make sense? Give me a yes or no in the chat box. And Terry, anything you want to add at this point?
Yeah. Imagine, this information that you're getting access to. Imagine tomorrow, whenever you go out to and you've got well, we call it in the UK, we call it a beauty parade, where you've got a number of search firms going for the same piece of business. But you're now armed with this information, and you get that ultimately you've got to stack the evidence in your favor. Because here's what most recruiters do. Yes, Mr. Harry, tell me what you're looking for. We'll put together a proposal and we'll get back to you. And the hiring manager says, great. Just to let you know, we're talking to 6 other search firms, so we're going to get 6 proposals. So all the hiring manager then is get 6 proposals. The hiring manager has a meeting, let's say with HR, and they have a discussion about who to use. Ultimately, what they're going to do is they're going to go, well, this search firm, they're 1% or 2% less than the others, so we'll go with those. Because that's the only piece of evidence they've got. That's it. But imagine that you get this, and before the call, you're stacking the evidence, you're providing evidence as to why you're best. During the call, you're doing it. You then send your proposal, and after you've sent your proposal, you're stacking more evidence. You're sending more evidence to the hiring managers and to all the others involved in the decision making. Just imagine how you stand above the crowd. And then it's not now about, well, they're 1% cheaper or 2% more expensive or whatever. These guys, I feel safe giving this business to this organization, because ultimately the client wants to feel safe in the decision that they make. I don't remember years ago, there's been an ad when computers first came out, and they used to say the IBM ad was nobody ever got fired for buying an IBM. It was a safe bet. It was a safe choice. That's what your hiring manager's looking for right now. But you need to provide the evidence that it is a safe choice, a safe decision. Perfect.
So the evidence that you provide, depends on you and your business, right? But I'm going to give you a few examples, because what people tend to do in sales calls is they just talk all about them, how good they are, their experience, right? But we need to educate, right? We need to teach the hiring manager of the different ways that recruitment can work and the way that we work, and why it might be a right fit for them. Again, I want to go back to the analogy of the surgeon or the doctor. If they're telling you need brain surgery, they're going to talk to you why, painkillers aren't going to work and brain surgery is the right way to go. They're going to demonstrate, they're going to say, look, if you continue doing what you're doing, this way, this is what's going to happen. But if you get brain surgery, then it's going to fix the problem, right? We need to explain that. So, for example, if you're a specialist recruiter and you want the profit to fly from you, you need to be able to explain and demonstrate to the client why it's better to go with a specialist rather than a generalist. Like your sales presentation, before the content you send them before needs to do that. If they don't understand that, then they're not going to buy from you, right? If you're a specialist versus a generalist, they're not going to buy from you, right? Again, vice versa, if you're a generalist saying they shouldn't buy from a specialist, your story should be about that as well, right? So I'm not trying to, doesn't matter what your story is, but I'm saying you need to be able to, you should believe that it's better for the client, for one, and you need to be able to get that point across, right? And then, again, if you want to work on exclusive versus contingency, we need to get the point across that, Mr. and Mrs. Client, if you work contingency, when I find the candidates, I'm going to send them to you, but also, your competitors as well. If we work together exclusively, I'm just going to send them to you. It's going to be just you interviewing these candidates. Where do you think you get the best results, right? And again, if the client wants the best candidate, what they're going to say, okay, exclusive. Done. They've made a decision, not you. Mr. and Mrs. Client, do you want, me to send over a few CVs that are on databases, or do you want me to do in-depth market research? Again, we're explaining the differences between the two. If we do in-depth research, most candidates that you want to interview probably aren't looking right now. They're probably working for some of your competitors, right? So I can go out and find who they are and then approach them, versus I'm just going to go on LinkedIn and, send you a few CVs. And obviously you wouldn't say it like this, but that's the different types of recruitment that you can offer. And we need to make it clear to the client the way you're working versus the way, everyone else is working. I just want to check in. Does that make sense? Give me a yes or no in the chat box. I'm making it clear without going into too much detail. But we want to stack the evidence. Again, you can use stories, testimonials. Again, going right back to the start of the webinar, the very reason I showed you the video of some of our recent clients saying, these are the results that we got, is for evidence. If we didn't give you that, and I just dive straight into the presentation, it's less believable. But when you hear Don saying, look, we've increased our revenue by 30% even during a pandemic, or wherever it happens to be, it's evidence. It's like an eyewitness account of what I'm about to tell you versus me just telling you. So I want to check in. If you find this useful so far, give me a yes or no. And Terry, anything you want to add? If it's useful, let me know.
Yeah, there's a saying, isn't there, that you can get anybody to do anything if you can communicate the benefit of them doing it. If you can communicate to the hiring manager why they should pay you on the retained basis, and why they should pay you rather a higher fee, they will. And anybody that's got children, I'm sure you've had conversations such as, if you don't do X, Y, Z, you're not going to go on your screen. If you don't eat your greens, you're not going to go back on the computer or whatever. Chargers actually want to do that, but the benefit of them eating their greens means they can go back on the computer. This is what this is all about. It's stacking the evidence in your favor. It's communicating the benefit of them doing something that serves you both. And if you don't do this, you don't get the business. If your competitor's doing it, they get the business.
So they're the three principles of automatic sales. 1, filtration, 2, intention, and then 3, demonstration. And what this system gives you more sales on retained or exclusive basis. Quite frankly, we don't count it as a sale if it's not on one of those two terms. Easier and more predictable sales process as well. A lot of people don't even have a sales process. Clients come in, they speak to clients. There's no mapped out process for the client to go through that demonstrates how good you are or how you might be able to help solve their problem. It's just, as I said, it's just a conversation. Gives you consistent growth, allows you to outpitch your competitors, because most people who work on contingency don't explain the difference between, so let's assume they want to get retainer and, but they can't. It's because they haven't explained the difference between contingency and retain. So all the client thinks is, well, hang on a minute, one I pay up front, one I don't. Why would I work on retained? Like there's no reason to. And again, unless you explain the benefits to the client, you give them evidence, you show them, look, if you work on retained or if you work exclusively with me, you're going to get the best pick of the candidates. Your company is going to look better and not as desperate, because you're not going to have 10 recruiters pitching to the same consultants, right? The whole process is smoother. You've only got one point. All the reasons why exclusivity is better, not why it's better for you, why it's better for the client. We need to be able to demonstrate that. If we can demonstrate that, while everyone else is going in, with the same old pitches, you're actually demonstrating why your way of working is better, you win the business. When the business means you increase your personal income, again, you get your team doing this if you've got a team, rather than them just going out, meeting whoever they want, whether they're a buyer or not. So not doing filtration, not going with the intention of them having commission breath because they're so desperate to hit targets, so desperate to make the sale, suddenly they'll be performing better as well. So again, just want to give you some real world numbers when you get this in place, or more evidence is probably a better use of language for this. Again, Larry Johnson, Tour de K in sales. John Compton makes 3 placements on retained. Gary working on contingency assignments to win his first retainer in 2 weeks. Again, lots of examples there. 6 or 7 retainers working on. Shimmer on there, one a retained exclusive piece of business. Again, this is all using the automatic sales process along with the marketing process that supports it. So again, if you want to do this, the time to act is now. If you want to move from either not having a good sales process or, you know, maybe you're working on contingency, the time to act is now. You said right at the beginning that, you know, there's no point listening to this if you're not going to do anything with it. So look, here's how we might be able to help. Again, we've set aside some time over the next few days to speak with you personally about how you can apply these ideas to your recruitment and search business owner. So whatever your biggest challenge is around selling, whether you want help with the filtration process, the demonstration process, you know, you want to help with the intention, you know, we can help you with that and help overcome it. And basically what we'll do is on the session, we'll come up with a plan to help you reach your income and revenue goals and for attracting and selling to the exact type of clients that you want to work with. So in order for you to take advantage of this, you must run an ethical business and be good at what you do. So this is only for, to be very clear, it's only for good recruiters. If you're not, or you're not a good recruiter, or you're new to this, then this isn't necessarily going to be for you. You must be the main decision maker. It's for owners and directors of the business, not consultants. You must be committed to growing, and you must be willing to invest time, energy, and finances into the growth of your business. If that's not you, then this won't be for you. But if it is, if you head over to makemoreplacements.com/start, there's a short application there to fill in, and then you can book a call. So the reason why we do this is, one, we love helping recruitment search owners achieve financial success and all that comes with it. And 2, you know, I know that the more people we help with these free plans, you know, I want you to be so impressed that you think, you know, how do I become a client of yours? And it's one of the ways we generate business as well. And at this stage, it is just a free plan. We just want the chance to impress you with what we can do. So go to makemoreplacements.com/start. Again, there's a few questions to answer, and then you can book a call directly with Terry. Come to an end now. Does anyone have any questions, anything we can help with? Put them in a chat box. Otherwise, go to makemoreplacements.com/start. Terry, anything you want to sort of add?
Just thank you. We've had some people booking already, so thanks for that. And I look forward to talking to you real soon. But go to makemoreplacements.com/start if you want to book a call and see how we can apply this to your business. There's no cost for this and there's no obligation, to be absolutely clear. So that's makemoreplacements.com/start. I've really enjoyed that, Drew.
Me too. I hope you found it useful. Again, if you've got any questions, happy to sort of answer while we're on the line for the next couple of minutes. If not, those of you that booked a call, obviously we can speak then. So Simon said, a friend in another recruitment agency said, good luck getting retainer in this market. I feel like I have to change my mindset on the market here. How can we change this? So the market is in the Middle East.
Can I just add something about it? One person's told you that doesn't mean it to be true. From my experience, I know several recruiters in the Middle East who are getting retainers. So I can almost guarantee there are recruiters or search firms over there that are getting retainers, because we've worked with some of them. So I will kind of take it with a pinch of salt with what one person said. Yeah,
just to be clear, like as well, you know, especially now with COVID going on and stuff, like even if that was true, I don't think it is, but even if it was true, you don't have to stay in the Middle East. Like you can, if you've got an internet connection, you can, you know, and I'm assuming you have because you're on this call, you can recruit for any market anywhere in the world. There's no reason, most of our clients are global recruiters, even though they're obviously physically based in one location. So Paul said, thanks, gents. Would it be possible to send over the recording of this as I had to take a call? Tell you what, if you join our Make More Placements Facebook group, I will post I'll do a post in there asking if anyone wants a recording. So yeah, I can't see sort of your email address or anything here, Paul, so I can't sort of promise you that. But if you join the group, I'll do a post, or Terry will do a post saying that we've done this, who wants a recording. And then if you just let us know within the group, then we can get it to you.
That's Make More Placements group on Facebook. Please join our group. If you apply to join our group, then we can post it in there.
So Alan said, we have a prospect that checks off all the questions and they want to work with us, but they refuse a retainer and willing to give us 2 weeks exclusive. We try saying, if we are showing success, then you, at your discretion, can review it another 2 weeks. But they want to remove that section. Do you play hardball and be willing to walk away? The answer, Alan, is up to you. So, it's your business. I think, for me, like the important part, so retainers are great because you get paid up front. The important part is the exclusivity. It might need to be a bit longer than 2 weeks, depending on the market, but the important part is the exclusivity. If you can get them to agree to that and to sign a cancellation, because I think if you get the cancellation there, they're not going to change their mind. So you can work it knowing that they're not going to pull out at the last minute, change their mind, and you're going to be left with egg on your face, right? So I think if you've got exclusivity with a cancellation, it's almost as good as having a retainer, because you've got that commitment there. So if they're definitely not willing to go down the retained route, so Alan said, what do you mean by cancellation? So cancellation means it's a part of your contract that will say, look, we're doing it for exclusivity. You're doing it on exclusive for X number of weeks or whatever. If the client cancels, changes their mind for any reason, then they will pay a third of the fee, the equivalent of the, again, that's to be fair, the fee's up to you, but they would pay a fee. Usually with our clients, it's the equivalent of the first stage of what a retained fee would be. Because I think if you can get them to agree to that, and that they're actually committed, they're signing everything, then, effectively it's as good as winning it's not as good. It's a lot better than winning contingency. And
but you're gonna get paid for the work that you get paid for doing the work.
Yeah.
It's the only way. Otherwise, you're gonna carry on working for nothing. Listen, I'm gonna have to jump. I've really enjoyed this, but thank you very much for joining us. I'll leave you with Drew. You're in safe hands with Drew. So until next time, folks, take care and take action.
So Joseph has said, can you touch on some of the cons of retainers? Cons. So one of the downsides, one of the complaints people have with retainers is that there's more pressure on you as a recruiter, right? Because you, as well as getting a client to commit to you, you've committed to filling the role to a client. I guess that could be a con. For me, I believe that if you're not 100% certain that you can fill the role, you don't have a belief in your own ability, then you shouldn't be working with the client anyway. So, yeah, I guess that's one of the cons. I personally don't see it as a con though, but that's what some people would say. I would prefer, even in the worst case scenario, I'd prefer, let's say I couldn't fill the role, right? I'd prefer having got paid up front and retained, couldn't fill the role, and then be in a position where I can give the money back if I want to, versus working it for free on contingency. But yeah, if you're not sure about filling the role, then don't take the business. Again, people asking for the recording. Again, if you join the Facebook group, Make More Placements, search Make More Placements in Facebook and join the group, then the recording will be there. For everyone else, you go to makemoreplacements.com/start. You can book a call with Terry where you can go over this in more detail with you. Jen has said, what percentage do you target for retainer? Is a standard that you work by typically? Is there a standard? No, there's not. People, like any fee, people's fees will vary greatly. So yeah, no to answer your question. In terms of what percentage do you target, I guess it's sort of yeah, I can't give you you should target as high as possible, really, or what you think your services are worth. But yeah, typically, whatever your fee is now, the way a retainer would work, it would be a third. So a third on winning the business, third on acceptable shortlist, and then third once you fill the role. Again, there's some people that do it all up front. There's some people that do 50% up front and then the rest. So it's up to you how you structure the payment. The important thing is to get commitment from the client. And again, just going back to sales, like when selling a retainer, one of the mistakes we see is people get obsessed with the retainer part, selling of the retainer. You don't want to sell the retainer, you sell the exclusivity, and the retainer is just the payment terms. Kind of like, selling a house or buying a house, you don't sell the idea of a mortgage, you sell the, how close it is to schools, the, the interior, that sort of stuff. You sell the house, and then, that happens to be the payment terms. So you focus on, if you can get the prospect to agree to or understand the benefits of being exclusive, we sort of 80% there of getting a retainer. Because, if you can get them to agree to that during a sales meeting, before you've talked about the fee, before you've talked about payment terms, at least we know we're going to get it on exclusive. And if you have a cancellation, then obviously, it's almost a retainer, but then, yeah, you can get a retainer as well. So Alan said, I know this is a loaded question, but how do you find prospects that have a need before other retained firms do? How do you find prospects that have a need before other retained firms do? Yeah, it is a loaded question. Again, I'm sorry this answer won't probably be good enough for what you're looking for. I would say to book a call with Terry, you can go over it in more detail, but effectively it's with effective marketing. So, there's three, in your marketing process, there's three things that you need to have in place. One, you need, what we call perpetual pipeline, which is consistently growing your network of hiring managers who, at the very least know you exist. I think the most difficult thing is if you're obscure, if there's hiring managers who don't know who you are, don't even know what service you offer, that's one of the biggest things that's going to hold you back, making a sale. Second thing is, you need to build authority with that group of people. So consistently build a network. Then you have what we call atomic authority. How do we quickly build authority with those people so they trust us and see us as a thought leader in the market? Then three, you need what we call limitless lead flow, where from that group of people, we identify what we call the now buyers. Who's going to be buying within the next 30 to 90 days? Who's going to have a need within the next 30 to 90 days? Once you can identify them, then that's obviously who you spend your time and attention on. How you do the ins and outs of that, I'm not going to have time to sort of do during a Q&A now. But yeah, like I say, if you book a call with Terry, you can go into it in a lot more detail. But I hope that helps. Joseph, how do you feel about no refund policy for retainers? Don't really have an opinion on it, to be honest. I think, if you, let me ask you a question. Why do you want no refund policy for retainers? If you let me know why, I can maybe answer it better. But I think, in general, I think your terms are your terms. It's your business. I think you're probably more secure with a no refund policy, as in, when you win the retainer, it's done. But at the same time, your client's going to have more concerns if you have a no refund policy, right? So paying you up front. So I think if you were pitching against a client, another recruiter who's, both retained but they had a sort of a refund policy in place, I think they're automatically going to have more trust. But that's not to say you wouldn't win the business, because you could have other things that, other ways of demonstrating evidence, but it's up to you. Again, I don't really feel strongly about it either way. I just think it depends on your business. Simon said, I have refused a client refund and only offered a guarantee, and the client signed the terms. Yeah, I think that's fine as well. Again, these are your terms, whatever you're comfortable with. There should be no refund, in my opinion. Not sure about retainers. It's not really for anyone else. I don't think, again, I know it is my opinion. I don't think it's in it for anyone else to have an opinion on. It's for your business. You will have a track record. You would, if you've been a recruiter for a while, you will know or could look at your numbers in terms of your success rate when filling a placement. Refunds sound scary because your thought is of the money you have to give back. But at the end of the day, if having a refund policy doubles the sales you make, then and you only end up sort of refunding 1% of those, you're not really going to be bothered at the end of the day. But it depends on your numbers, your individual business, whether you want to do it. It's not, I'm not precious about it. Jean Maria said, how do you encourage clients to pay after purchasing your services when they want to backtrack, or have you fulfilled placement with a contract? I mean, if they're not adhering to the contract, then I'd probably say, I wouldn't take advice from me at all, other than to speak to a legal professional. But they sound like not a very good client. So if they are backtracking, I wouldn't work with them again. But yeah, if they're breaching the contract, then they're breaching the contract. To me, it's black and white. So I don't think they shouldn't need encouraging. To me, they've already agreed. They agreed to it before you started working on it. So Joseph said, the reason I asked is because without a no refund policy, it might not be that much different from contingency. This is going to be the last sort of questions I need to drop off. So Joseph, the difference, I'm not entirely sure I understand what you mean, but I'll try my best to answer. The difference between retained and contingency, from your point of view as the recruiter, is, well, there's lots, but first and foremost, you often exclude the competition, right? It's very unlikely that a client is going to pay multiple firms a retainer for the same vacancy. They would, however, have multiple recruiters working on contingency, right? So straight away you eliminate the competition. You get paid a percentage up front, which really helps your cash flow. I think you look at a lot of contingency recruiters, they have cash flow problems because they win a job order, let's say the first of the month, they work it, they're spending all that time, resources working on it. While they're doing that, they're probably doing less business development. They may or may not fill it, but then at the end of the day, like the payment's delayed. With a retained recruiter, they're getting the payment up front, so they can afford to work it better, right? Typically contingency recruiters fill rate is going to be 30-40%, sometimes higher, but often lower as well. Retained, you're looking at sort of 80-90%, right? So you're more likely to get the whole payment. From the client's point of view, the differences are going to be retained with contingency. Whether you, I'm not talking about you as an individual, but I'm talking about the average contingency recruiter. When they get a contingency vacancy or a handful of contingency vacancies, they have to look at those vacancies and decide which one they think they're most likely to get paid on. Which one's the easiest to fill? Which one am I going to get paid on, right? So they're not, the client's not committed to fill in the role because it's contingency, but you as the recruiter can't be either, because you have to look at, where's the money? When it's retained, you work on, you wouldn't take on necessarily 10 job orders because, with contingency, you're only going to fill 2 of them maybe, so you need 10. With retained, you're probably going to fill them both, so you can just take 2 and focus on those 2. So the client actually gets more commitment, engagement from you as the recruiter. Again, you're able to give them a better service because you're not so focused on, I might not feel this. You're sort of pretty certain you are at that point, right? So I'm not sure what you mean about the refund. I assumed you meant the refund. I assumed what you meant was, if the candidate leaves after a certain time period, then it's not so different to contingency. But, at the same time, you cannot ignore the benefits on your cash flow. A lot of, we're recording this sort of mid-pandemic, or, who knows when it's going to end, but some way into the pandemic. And a lot of businesses in the industry went out of business, not because they had no clients, but because their cash flow was crap, right? So you cannot ignore the benefit of cash flow. And you're talking about contingency where you've got a fill rate of 20%. No, I don't know if anyone has got a refund rate of 80%. That's, again, I guess there might be somebody, but then they shouldn't really be a recruiter. Jen says, thanks. Then again, I'm just going to wrap up again. makemoreplacements.com/start if you want to speak to Terry directly. I'm going to get Terry to do a post in our Facebook group offering a recording of this. So if you do want the recording with the slides and all that stuff, make sure you're a member of the group too. Again, thank you for everyone that's joined. Thank you for your questions. I hope that I asked. It's difficult with when I can't speak to you directly. I've just got the text there, so apologies if I didn't answer it or wasn't clear. you know, hopefully we can speak another time directly, and I can be more, I guess, yeah, clear. We'll give you more clarity, I guess. But we will speak with you again soon. Until then, take care, take action, and be relentless.